Welcome to Flash Game Development Game 1. This is called Zoo Escape. Zoo Escape is going to be a point-and-click graphic adventure game. What I mean by that, you're going to click and you're going to point to different things to go there. Like I'll click on this door and I'll go here. I'll click on this door and I'll go here. If you have back buttons. So this is going to be how you're going to build your game. So what do we introduce in this project? Frames for each exhibit in the zoo. Add graphics and text to the exhibits. Write code that help the player move between exhibits. And add a title screen. In Lab 1 we're going to set up the rooms for our zoo game. As you can see, when we played this game, we had a choice. We could go into the lion room or the penguin room. This is called branching. When the player has a choice between two or more paths, it leads to different outcomes. Here's another way to look at the structure of the game. You can see that going to the penguin room opens up a couple more options, but if you go to the lion room, you have to go back to the start room. However, if you go to the B room from the penguin room, that's going to end the game. Then I look and I find my Action Script 2 menu and I click on that and I'm ready to go. I had to expand that for you to see that, but now I can just show you. I go File, Save As, and I go back and put it in my Project 1. So I go find my Resources file, go find my Project 1 file, and I call this one Zoo Escape. Don't change zoo assets, that's your library. Now we're just going to cover a few terms that you'll hear. First is the workspace. The workspace is what you see on the screen when you open up Flash. It has menus and panels. It has the stage here and it has the off-stage space. The stage is a big white box in the middle. That's where you create your games. Everything you see on the stage is going to show in your games. You might put some stuff in the gray area, but that's because you don't want them to show up at the same time your game, you come into this particular scene. So, which one of these are your players going to see? Are they going to see the star? Are they see all four of these? No, only the things in the white are what the players are going to see. These will come in later. Or they're going to be dependent on some event to show up. So now it wants you to set up your workspace, and the first thing they want you to do is they want you to reset your essentials. So you go to Windows, Workspace, then you have a thing called Reset Essentials. Okay, what that does is put these back on, which we eliminated in the course setup section, so we're just going to delete these. I know some of you guys are going to keep them because you're going to like to use that align button. But that's okay. We're just going to make this look like the course. Okay. Some of you noticed on the bottom of the screen we have what we call the timeline. The timeline, we just organize different parts of our games here. It has layers. Here's layer 1. You have several layers. You can have several frames. See here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those are all frames. These are all layers. So it has layers down the left side, and you already have one frame called layer 1. Now we're going to set up what we call keyframes. What's a keyframe? Anytime something important happens in something, it's a key, all right? A blank frame has nothing in it. A keyframe is something important, all right? Each image in a frame is called a frame. The images where important changes happened are called keyframes. If you have a white dot, that's a blank keyframe. A black dot is a regular keyframe. So now I'm going to insert some keyframes. So I click here in frame 2. I go Insert, Timeline, Blank Keyframe. I click in frame 3, do the same thing. Go Insert, Timeline, Blank Keyframe. Or I can do it this way. I can just click my function 7 key. So you just go click functions F7, and function F7. So it just does the same thing. Or if you rather, you can always go with insert timeline keyframe. So there you go. Now I've got 5 blank keyframes. So next thing we're going to handle is the properties panel. The properties panel lets you change properties and images and frames and tools and stuff that you use in your game. So on the next thing we're going to do is we're going to use the property panel to label the names of the keyframes we just created. So now let me label my room. I'm going to go over here to room 1, and I come up here and call this one start room. Now do it exactly like they tell you, because see, underscore capital ROOM, because there's coding involved. You don't want your computer to be messed up. So I click enter. I click on the second one. This one is called what? Lion room. Enter. See, I'm getting little flags down here as I name my rooms. This is penguin room. Do it exactly like they tell you to do. Don't vary in the least, because you've got coding. You're going to be coding this stuff, and you don't want it to be mixed up. This is B room. And the last one's escape room. So you got 5 little flags here where you named your rooms. Now you want to check your work, make sure that everything's the way you want it. Make sure frames 1 through 5 are keyframes. They all have white dots. They all have red flags. So click Save to save your project. Welcome to Lab 2. What do we do in Lab 2? Add the background image and the doors to the first room. Okay, open your project if you don't have it open already. Okay, what's a library? Well, it's down the corner, right? Get your books there. Well, library in Flash is just items that you use in your Flash project. You know, any kind of art, any kind of sound, any kind of videos or photos. Those are all called assets. Every Flash project has its own library, and it's called an internal library. Okay, if you want to bring in a library from outside, say you want to bring stuff in from another project, that's called an external library. Here in this course, we're going to use all pre-made assets. What are those? Those are items that are already made for your game. So you can focus on building the game instead of spending time on artwork. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to arrange my library panel. Here's properties. Right next door is library. I'm going to drag this to my stage. And now I'm going to dock this. So I'm going to come up to this gray bar on the top. Now not looking for that blue bar across everything. I'm just drag it up to where it's just a single blue line. And then I release it. So my library is above my properties. Now I can just resize my properties here. Drag them up a little bit. And we should be fine. Now I'm going to import my external library. So I go File. I go Import. Open an external library. Now I got to look for it. So I go into my game design folder, open up resources, open up project 1, and there is my zoo assets file. So I just click open. Okay, what I want to do is I want to drag these assets over here into this empty space here under name. Now I can do them one at a time, but that's stupid. I'll show you how to move them all at once. I click on required. Go all the way down to the last one, hold down my shift key, click title text, and I just drag them and drop them. See, I got the little green box around the name stuff. When I drop them, it all copies there. Now double check. My first one's called required. That one's required. My last one's called title text. Last one here is title text. I did it right. I close it out. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a new layer to my timeline and call it buttons. What's a layer? A layer just helps you organize your artwork when you're working in your games. They're just like transparent sheets of paper. So I want something over my background, so I'm going to have to put it above it, and I'm going to call it buttons. Now, it's important for you to know that what's on the top is going to cover everything underneath it. So if I had the background above my text and my buttons, I wouldn't see anything but the background. So I have to have the background in the back, right? Anything that covers has to be above it. So whatever I want to be on the top has to be covers up anything underneath it. So in this example right here, your tree layer is over the bird's over the cloud layer is over the sky. So they're in that order. So what I'm going to do here is rename layer 1 background. So I just double click it and type background. And click enter. A lot of times if I make a mistake, what I can do is I can do an undo command. Control Z undoes something you just did. Now if you want to repeat something 70 times rather than go through the thing again and again, you can always do a Control Y. Control Y is a repeat command. So it can do redo something, or it can repeat something. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a background layer. I'm going to drag the start background, click on start background, I click on the picture, drag the picture onto the screen. I right click this, actually I click on window, come on down to align, and then I choose align to the left and align to the top. And so now I can close this out. Now we're going to create our button layer. We're going to put our buttons for the game on the button layer. So what do buttons do? They're just interactive objects that make something happen in the game. So for example, the door is going to be a button. What's going to happen when you click on the door? It's going to go into a room. Then you have a back button to take you back to the previous room. So now what I'm going to do is add a new layer. I click on add a new layer button down here, lower left hand corner. I'm going to call this layer 2 buttons. So I double click, call it buttons. Click enter. Then I click on frame 1, hold down my shift key and click on frame 5. Now what I'm going to do is insert blank keyframes in all of these, and the way I do that is I can click F7, or I can go insert timeline blank keyframe, and that should put blank keyframes in all of them. Or I can go function F7, so that should select them all. Or you can go and do them individually, it doesn't matter. I click on frame 1 here. Gonna drag start door 1, click start door 1, drag it up here. Click on start door 2, drag that one there. So now I want to line up the doors. I click in frame 1, and then I come up here to window, I go down to align, and I align them to the bottom. Then I space them evenly horizontally. So I can close this out. And you can do it differently if you don't like the look of that. Now make sure that your buttons here, that your doors are on this layer. Make sure your background's on this layer. You should see a black dot on the one up here and a black dot on the other down there. If it's on the wrong one, just erase it and go put it on the right one. So make sure that your stage looks like this illustration right here. you want all the blank keyframes, blank except for the frame ones. Make sure your background is aligned to the edge of the stage. Make sure your doors are aligned to the bottom of the stage and spaced the way you want them. Then just save your project. Welcome to Lab 3. In Lab 3, we're just going to add instructions. We're going to add a text box so that the player knows what to do. Now, so you don't make a mistake and put something on the wrong layer, what you can do is you can lock a layer. You just click below the lock symbol to lock a layer. So now, since I don't want to accidentally put something on these layers here, I'm going to lock them. I click, here's the padlock. I click here and here. I don't want to accidentally put something there I don't want. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to add a narrative. A narrative just is the text that guides the player through the maze or the story, whatever you want to do. So you're going to add a narrative to each room so the player knows what's going on. So now I'm going to add a layer. Click the Add a Layer button, and I'm going to drag it up to the top. So once you've dragged it to the top, you just rename it Text Box. So I'm going to drag a text box to the stage. I'm going to align it. I'm going to click Window, Align, and align it to the bottom. And I'm going to equalize it between the two things and close it out. What we want to happen is we want this text box to be in all the frames after it. So the way we're going to do this is on this particular layer, we're going to add keyframes after this. If we didn't want this to happen, we'd add a blank keyframe after it. So to put my text box on every frame, I'm going to click on 1, then I hold my Shift key down and click on 5. Then I'm going to actually hold down my Function F6 key, and that'll put one on every one of these. I'll put a black dot in every one of these. Now, can I go put a keyframe on every one of these individually through the Insert menu? Can I go Insert, Timeline, Keyframe? Yeah. But why? I can just do that. You have to do it one at a time that way. I just go hold down the Function F6 key and fill them all up. But you can do them individually. So I want to lock this layer as well. Just click the lock. Now we get to use a rather fun tool panel here. You can add arty things. You can paint, draw. But here we're going to add some text. See that D? We're going to add some text. So now I'm going to add a new layer. Click Layer Bar. And this layer is going to be called Text. So double click, call this one Text. If it doesn't come up to the top, just drag it up there. So now I click on my T, and I make sure this says static text. See, it says dynamic. I'm going to change that to static. So I click static, so that says static text. Now I'm going to change this to Arial regular. So I click this down, and I find Arial. Then I have to make sure it says regular. Now I want to change the text size to 12. I want to change the font color to white. So I click the color and click white. Last lab we introduced you to Control X for undo, Control Y for redo. Or I'm sorry, Control Z for undo, Control Y for redo. In this section we introduced Control C for copy and Control P for paste, or Control V for paste. Control C copy, Control V for paste. We're going to copy text and then paste it into our new file. In this course we copy course text, we copy course coding, all that from a special file that we have for every project. This text is a course text that you need to make your Flash project work. Just copying and paste, it's going to save you time because you don't have to copy everything out by hand. Alright? So I'm going to go File, open. Now I'm going to go Project 1 copy code and I'm going to click open. So here's Project 1 copy code. So I'm going to copy this text right here. And this is what I'm going to put in the text box. Right click copy. I'll come back to this other file, Zooscape. And I'm going to click and paste. Right click copy, right click paste. I'm going to drag this on top. So now what do? I drag it down to the bar here, and then I drag on the sizing handles and make it fit. Click on my T. But there you go. It happened right when I turned off the recording. So just highlight everything. If this turns back to black down here on your color, just click there and click white again. Okay? You want to make sure if you want to move the text, just click this and make sure you have a blue line around it. Then you can change the size. You can see I got a little four-headed arrow that'll move it. If I come here with a double-headed arrow like this, that'll make it bigger. Okay, click your text. You should see the blue line, and then hold down the Shift key. If you can see any other blue lines that for text fields that you accidentally added, get rid of them. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add this text to every layer, and we'll just change the text as we go. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down the Shift key, click fifth frame here. Now I'm going to go click the function F6 key. Now if you don't like that and you want to do this in every frame, you can always go Insert Timeline Keyframe. Then you'll get a keyframe in every one of these, because you want to keep this here and you're going to just change the text in here, but you want to keep the size and the color. Next thing we do is we padlock this layer. So double check your frame 1, make sure everything looks like the example here. If it does, you're ready for lab 4.